Stephen William Hawking was born on 8 January 1942 and unfortunately passed on March 14, 2018. Stephen was an English theoretical physicist, cosmologist, and author who was Director of Research at the Centre for Theoretical Cosmology at the University of Cambridge at the time of his death. He was the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at the University of Cambridge between 1979 and 2009. His scientific works included a collaboration with Roger Penrose on gravitational singularity theorems in the framework of general relativity and the theoretical prediction that black holes emit radiation, often called Hawking radiation. Hawking was the first to set out a theory of cosmology explained by a union of the general theory of relativity and quantum mechanics. He was a vigorous supporter of the many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Hawking achieved commercial success with several works of popular science in which he discusses his own theories and cosmology in general. His book A Brief History of Time appeared on the British Sunday Times bestseller list for a record-breaking 237 weeks. Hawking was a Fellow of the Royal Society, FRS, a lifetime member of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, and a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian award in the United States. In 2002, Hawking was ranked number 25 in the BBC's poll of the 100 Greatest Britons. In 1963, Hawking was diagnosed with an early-onset slow-progressing form of motor neuron disease, MND, also known as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, that gradually paralyzed him over the decades. Even after the loss of his speech, he was still able to communicate through a speech-generating device, initially through use of a handheld switch, and eventually by using a single cheek muscle. He died on March 14, 2018 at the age of 76, after living with the disease for more than 50 years. Hawking was born on January 8, 1942 in Oxford to Frank, 1905–1986, 27 and Isabel Eileen Hawking, née Walker, 1915–2013. Hawking's mother was born into a family of doctors in Glasgow, Scotland. His wealthy paternal great-grandfather, from Yorkshire, overextended himself buying farmland and then went bankrupt in the Great Agricultural Depression during the early 20th century. His paternal great-grandmother saved the family from financial ruin by opening a school in their own. Despite their financial constraints, both parents attended the University of Oxford, where Frank read medicine and Isabel read philosophy, politics and economics. Isabel worked as a secretary for a medical research institute, and Frank was a medical researcher. Hawking had two younger sisters, Philippa and Mary, and an adopted brother, Edward Frank David, 1955–2003. In 1950, when Hawking's father became head of the Division of Parasitology at the National Institute for Medical Research, the family moved to St Albans, Hertfordshire. In St Albans, the family was considered highly intelligent and somewhat eccentric. Meals were often spent with each person silently reading a book. They lived a frugal existence in a large, cluttered, and poorly maintained house and travelled in a converted London taxicab. During one of Hawking's father's frequent absences working in Africa, the rest of the family spent 4 months in Mallorca visiting his mother's friend Beryl and her husband, the poet Robert Graves. Primary and secondary school years. Hawking began his schooling at the Byron House School in Highgate, London. He later blamed its progressive methods for his failure to learn to read while at the school. In St Albans, the 8-year-old Hawking attended St Albans High School for a few months. At that time, younger boys could attend one of the houses. Hawking attended two independent, that is fee-paying, schools, First Trowbridge School and from September 1952, St Albans School, after passing the 11+ a year early. The family placed a high value on education. Hawking's father wanted his son to attend the well-regarded Westminster School, but the 13-year-old Hawking was ill on the day of the scholarship examination. His family could not afford his school fees without the financial aid of a scholarship, so Hawking remained at St Albans. A positive consequence was that Hawking remained close to a group of friends with whom he enjoyed board games, the manufacture of fireworks, model aeroplanes and boats, and long discussions about Christianity and extrasensory perception. From 1958 on, with the help of the mathematics teacher Dikran Tata, they built a computer from clock parts, an old telephone switchboard and other recycled components. Although known at school as Einstein, Hawking was not initially successful academically. With time, he began to show considerable aptitude for subjects and, inspired by Tata, decided to read mathematics at university. Hawking's father advised him to study medicine, concerned that there were few jobs for graduates. He also wanted his son to attend University College, Oxford, his alma mater. As it was not possible to read mathematics there at any time, Hawking decided to study physics and chemistry. Despite his headmaster's advice to wait until the next year, Hawking was awarded a scholarship after taking the examinations in March 1959. Undergraduate years Hawking began his university education at University College, Oxford, in October 1959 at the age of 17. For the first 18 months, he was bored and lonely. He found the academic work ridiculously easy. His physics tutor, Robert Beman, later said, it was really necessary for him to know that something could be done, and he could do it without looking to see how other people did it. A change occurred during his second and third year when, according to Beman, Hawking made more of an effort to be one of the boys. He developed into a popular, lively and witty college member, interested in classical music and science fiction. Part of the transformation resulted from his decision to join the College Boat Club, the University College Boat Club, where he coaxed a rowing crew. The rowing crew at the time noted that Hawking cultivated a daredevil image, steering his crew on risky courses that led to damaged boats. Hawking estimated that he studied about 1,000 hours during his 3 years at Oxford. These unimpressive study habits made sitting his finals a challenge, and he decided to answer only theoretical physics questions rather than those requiring factual knowledge. A first-class honors degree was a condition of acceptance for his planned graduate study in cosmology at the University of Cambridge. Anxious, he slept poorly the night before the examinations, and the final result was on the borderline between first and second-class honors, making of either oral examination, with the Oxford examiners necessary. Hawking was concerned that he was viewed as a lazy and difficult student. So, when asked at either to describe his plans, he said, "If you award me a first, I will go to Cambridge. If I receive a second, I shall stay in Oxford, so I expect you will give me a first." He was held in higher regard than he believed. As Beman commented, the examiners were intelligent enough to realize they were talking to someone far cleverer than most of themselves. After receiving a first-class B.A.'s degree in physics and completing a trip to Iran with a friend, he began his graduate work at Trinity Hall, Cambridge, in October 1962. Graduate years Hawking's first year as a doctoral student was difficult. He was initially disappointed to find that he had been assigned Dennis William Sirma, one of the founders of modern cosmology, as a supervisor rather than noted Yorkshire astronomer Fred Hoyle, and he found his training in mathematics inadequate for working general relativity and cosmology. After being diagnosed with motor neuron disease, Hawking fell into a depression. Then his doctors advised that he continue with his studies. He felt there was little point. His disease progressed more slowly than doctors had predicted. Although Hawking had difficulty walking unsupported, and his speech was almost unintelligible, an initial diagnosis that he had only 2 years to live proved unfounded. With Sirma's encouragement, he returned to his work. Hawking started developing a reputation for brilliance and brashness when he publicly challenged the work of Fred Hoyle and his student J. Archibald at a lecture in June 1964. When Hawking began his graduate studies, there was much debate in the physics community about the prevailing theories of the creation of the universe, the Big Bang and steady-state theories. Inspired by Roger Penrose's theorem of a space-time singularity in the center of black holes, Hawking applied the same thinking to the entire universe, and, during 1965, he wrote his thesis on this topic. Hawking's thesis was approved in 1966. There were other positive developments. Hawking received a research fellowship at Grenville and Cairns College at Cambridge. He obtained his PhD degree in applied mathematics and theoretical physics, specializing in general relativity and cosmology, in March 1966, and his essay Singularities and the Geometry of Space-Time shared top honors with one by Penrose to win the year's prestigious Adams Prize. 1966 to 1975. In his work, and in collaboration with Penrose, Hawking extended the singularity theorem concepts first explored in his doctoral thesis. This included not only the existence of singularities, but also the theory that the universe might have started as a singularity. Their third essay was the runner-up in the 1968 Gravity Research Foundation competition. In 1970, they published to prove that if the universe obeys the general theory of relativity and fits any of the models of physical cosmology developed by Alexander Friedmann, then it must have begun as a singularity. In 1969, Hawking accepted a specially created fellowship from in science to remain at Chaos. In 1970, Hawking postulated what became known as the second law of black hole dynamics, that the event horizon of a black hole can never get smaller. With James M. Bodine and Brandon Carter, he proposed the four laws of black hole mechanics, drawing an analogy with thermodynamics. To Hawking's irritation, Jacob Bekenstein, a graduate student of John Wheeler, went further and ultimately correctly to apply thermodynamic concepts literally. In the early 1970s, Hawking's work with Carter, Warner Israel and David C. Robinson strongly supported Wheeler's Singularity Theorem, one that states that no matter what the original material from which a black hole is created, it can be completely described by the properties of mass, electrical charge and rotation. His essay titled Black Holes won the Gravity Research Foundation Award in January 1971. Hawking's first book, The Large-Scale Structure of Space-Time, written with George Ellis, was published in 1973. Beginning in 1973, Hawking moved into the study of quantum gravity and quantum mechanics. His work in this area was sparked by a visit to Moscow and discussions with Yakov Borisovich and Alexei Starovinsky, whose work showed that according to the uncertainty principle, rotating black holes emit particles. To Hawking's annoyance, his much-checked calculations produced findings that contradicted his second law, which claimed black holes could never get smaller, and supported Bekenstein's reasoning about their theory. His results, which Hawking presented from 1974, showed that black holes emit radiation, known today as Hawking radiation, which may continue until they exhaust their theory and evaporate. Initially, Hawking radiation was controversial. By the late 1970s and following the publication of further research, the discovery was widely accepted as a significant breakthrough in theoretical physics. Hawking was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society, FRS, in 1974, a few weeks after the announcement of Hawking radiation. At the time, he was one of the youngest scientists to become a Fellow. Hawking was appointed to the Sherman Fairchild Distinguished Visiting Professorship at the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, in 1974. He worked with a friend on the faculty, Kip Thorne, and engaged him in a scientific wager about whether the X-ray source Cygnus X-1 was a black hole. The wager was an insurance policy against the proposition that black holes did not exist. Hawking acknowledged that he had lost the bet in 1990, a bet that was the first of several he was to make with Thorne and others. Hawking had maintained ties to Caltech, spending a month there almost every year since this first visit. 1975 to 1990. Hawking returned to Cambridge in 1975 to a more academically senior post, as reader in gravitational physics. The mid to late 1970s were a period of growing public interest in black holes and the physicists who were studying them. Hawking was regularly interviewed for print and television. He also received increasing academic recognition of his work. In 1975, he was awarded both the Eddington Medal and the Pierce the 11th Gold Medal, and in 1976 the Danny Hyman Prize, the Maxwell Prize and the Hughes Medal. He was appointed a professor with a chair in gravitational physics in 1977. The following year he received the Albert Einstein Medal and an honorary doctorate from the University of Oxford. In 1979, Hawking was elected Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at the University of Cambridge. His inaugural lecture in this role was titled, Is the End in Sight for Theoretical Physics? And proposed N equals h for gravity as the leading theory to solve many of the outstanding problems physicists were studying. His promotion coincided with a health crisis which led to his accepting, albeit reluctantly, some nursing services at home. At the same time, he was also making a transition in his approach to physics, becoming more intuitive and speculative rather than insisting on mathematical proofs. I would rather be right than rigorous, he told Kip Thorne. In 1981, he proposed that information in a black hole is irretrievably lost when a black hole evaporates. This information paradox violates the fundamental tenet of quantum mechanics, and led to years of debate, including the black hole war with Leonard Susskind and Gerard T. Hooft. Cosmological inflation, a theory proposing that following the Big Bang, the universe initially expanded incredibly rapidly before settling down to a slower expansion, was proposed by Alan Guth and also developed by Andre Linde. Following a conference in Moscow in October 1981, Hawking and Gary Gibbons organized a 3-week field workshop in the summer of 1982 on the very early universe at Cambridge University, a workshop that focused mainly on inflation theory. Hawking also began a new line of quantum theory research into the origin of the universe. In 1981 at a Vatican conference, he presented work suggesting that there might be no boundary, or beginning or ending, to the universe. Hawking subsequently developed the research in collaboration with Jim Hartle, and in 1983 they published a model known as the Hartle-Hawking state. It proposed that prior to the Planck epoch, the universe had no boundary in space-time. Before the Big Bang, time did not exist and the concept of the beginning of the universe is meaningless. The initial singularity of the classical Big Bang models was replaced with a region akin to the North Pole. One cannot travel north of the North Pole, but there is no boundary there. It is simply the point where all north-running lines meet and end. Initially, the no-boundary proposal predicted a closed universe, which had implications about the existence of God. As Hawking explained, if the universe has no boundaries, but is self-contained, then God would not have had any freedom to choose how the universe began. Hawking did not rule out the existence of a creator, asking in A Brief History of Time is the unified theory so compelling that it brings about its own existence. In his early work, Hawking spoke of God in a metaphorical sense. In A Brief History of Time he wrote, "If we discover a complete theory, it would be the ultimate triumph of human reason, for then we should know the mind of God." In the same book he suggested that the existence of God was not necessary to explain the origin of the universe. Later discussions with Neil Cherrick led to the realization that the existence of God was also compatible with an open universe. Further work by Hawking in the area of hours of time led to the 1985 publication of a paper theorizing that if the no-boundary proposition were correct, then when the universe stopped expanding and eventually collapsed, time would run backwards. A paper by Don Page and independent calculations by Raymond Laflamme led Hawking to withdraw this concept. Honors continued to be awarded. In 1981 he was awarded the American Franklin Medal, and in the 1982 New Year Honors appointed a Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE. These awards did not significantly change Hawking's financial status, and motivated by the need to finance his children's education and home expenses, he decided in 1982 to write a popular book about the universe that would be accessible to the general public. Instead of publishing with an academic press, he signed a contract with Bantam Books, a mass-market publisher, and received a large advance for his book. A first draft of the book, called A Brief History of Time, was completed in 1984. One of the first messages Hawking produced with his speech-generating device was a request for his assistant to help him finish writing A Brief History of Time. Peter Guzzi, his editor at Bantam, pushed him to explain his ideas clearly in non-technical language, a process that required many revisions from an increasingly irritated Hawking. The book was published in April 1988 in the US and in June in the UK, and it proved to be an extraordinary success, rising quickly to the top of bestseller lists in both countries and remaining efforts. The book was translated into many languages, and ultimately sold an estimated 9 million copies. Media attention was intense, and a Newsweek magazine cover and a television special both described him as master of the universe. Success led to significant financial rewards, but also the challenges of celebrity status. Hawking traveled extensively to promote his work, and enjoyed partying and dancing into the small hours. A difficulty refusing the invitations and visitors left him limited time for work and his students. Some colleagues were resentful of the attention Hawking received, feeling it was due to his disability. He received further academic recognition, including 5 honorary degrees, the Gold Medal of the Royal Astronomical Society, 1985, the Paul Dirac Medal, 1987, and, jointly with Penrose, the prestigious Wolf Prize, 1988. In the 1989 birthday honors, he was appointed a Companion of Honor, CH. He reportedly declined a knighthood in the late 1990s in objection to the UK's science funding policy. 1992–2000 Hawking pursued his walking physics. In 1993 he co-edited a book on Euclidean quantum gravity with Gary Gibbons and published a collected edition of his own articles on black holes and the Big Bang. In 1994, at Cambridge's Newton Institute, Hawking and Penrose delivered a series of 6 lectures that were published in 1996 as The Nature of Space and Time. In 1997, he conceded a 1,991 public scientific wager made with Kip Thorne and John Skill of Caltech. Hawking had bet that Penrose's proposal of a cosmic censorship conjecture, that there could be net singularities uncloaked within a horizon, was correct. After discovering his concession might have been premature, a new and more refined wager was made. This one specified that such singularities would occur without extra conditions. The same year, Thorne, Hawking and Skill made another bet, this time concerning the black hole information paradox. Thorne and Hawking argued that since general relativity made it impossible for black holes to radiate and lose information, the mass, energy and information carried by Hawking radiation must be new, and not from inside the black hole event horizon. Since this contradicted the quantum mechanics of microcausality, quantum mechanics theory would need to be rewritten. Skill argued the opposite, that since quantum mechanics suggests that the information emitted by a black hole relates to information that fell in at an earlier time, the concept of black holes given by general relativity must be modified in some way. Hawking also maintained his public profile, including bringing science to a wider audience. A film version of A Brief History of Time, directed by Rel Morris and produced by Steven Spielberg, premiered in 1992. Hawking had wanted the film to be scientific rather than biographical, but he was persuaded otherwise. The film, while a critical success, was not widely released. A popular 11 collection of essays, interviews, and talks titled Black Holes and Baby Universes and Other Essays was published in 1993, and a 6-part television series Stephen Hawking's Universe and a companion book appeared in 1997. As Hawking insisted, this time the focus was entirely on science. 2002–2018 Hawking continued his writings for a popular audience, publishing The Universe in a Nutshell in 2001, and A Brief History of Time, which he wrote in 2005 with Leonard M. Lodi and www.Works with the aim of making them accessible to a wider audience, and God Created the Integers, which appeared in 2006. Along with Thomas Hattogutson and Jim Hartle, from 2006 on, Hawking developed a theory of top-down cosmology, which says that the universe had not one unique initial state, but many different ones, and therefore that it is inappropriate to formulate a theory that predicts the universe's current configuration from one particular initial state. Top-down cosmology posits that the present selects the past from a superposition of many possible histories. In doing so, the theory suggests a possible resolution of the fine-tuning question. Hawking continued to travel widely, including trips to Chile, Easter Island, South Africa, Spain, to receive the Franske Prize in 2008, Canada, and numerous trips to the United States. For practical reasons related to his disability, Hawking increasingly traveled by private jet, and by 2011 it had become his only mode of international travel. By 2003, consensus among physicists was growing that Hawking was wrong about the loss of information in a black hole. In a 2004 lecture in Dublin, he conceded his 1,997 bet with skill, but described his own, somewhat controversial solution to the information paradox problem, involving the possibility that black holes have more than one topology. In the 2005 paper he published on the subject, he argued that the information paradox was explained by examining all the alternative histories of universes, with the information loss in those with black holes being cancelled out by those without such loss. In January 2014, he called the alleged loss of information in black holes his biggest blunder. As part of another long-standing scientific dispute, Hawking had emphatically argued, and bet, that the Higgs boson would never be found. The particle was proposed to exist as part of the Higgs field theory by Peter Higgs in 1964. Hawking and Higgs engaged in a heated and public debate over the matter in 2002 and again in 2008, with Higgs criticizing Hawking's work and complaining that Hawking's celebrity status gives him instant credibility that others do not have. The particle was discovered in July 2012 at Sun following construction of the Large Hadron Collider. Hawking quickly conceded that he had lost his bet and said that Higgs should win the Nobel Prize for Force, which he did in 2013. In 2007, Hawking and his daughter Lucy published George's Secret Key to the Universe, a children's book designed to explain theoretical physics in an accessible fashion and featuring characters similar to those in the Hawking family. The book was followed by sequels in 2009, 2011, 2014 and 2016. In 2002, following a UK-wide vote, the BBC included Hawking in their There to the 100 Greatest Britons. He was awarded the Copley Medal from the Royal Society, 2006, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is America's highest civilian honor, 2009, and the Russian Special Fundamental Physics Prize, 2013. Several buildings have been named after him, including the Stephen W. Hawking Science Museum in San Salvador, El Salvador, the Stephen Hawking Building in Cambridge, and the Stephen Hawking Center at the Perimeter Institute in Canada. Appropriately, given Hawking's association with time, he unveiled the mechanical chronophage meeting, Copper's Clock at Corpus Christi College, Cambridge in September 2008. During his career, Hawking supervised 39 successful PhD students. One doctoral student did not successfully complete a PhD. As required by Cambridge University regulations, Hawking retired as Lucasian Professor of Mathematics in 2009. Despite suggestions that he might leave the United Kingdom as a protest against public funding cuts to basic scientific research, 2013 Hawking worked as Director of Research at the Cambridge University Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics. On June 28, 2009, as a tongue-in-cheek test of his 1992 conjecture that travel into the past is effectively impossible, Hawking held a party open to all, complete with hors-d'oeuvres and iced champagne, but publicized the party only after it was revealed that only time travelers would know to attend. As expected, nobody showed up to the party. On July 20, 2015, Hawking helped launch Breakthrough Initiatives, an effort to search for extraterrestrial life. Hawking created Stephen Hawking, Expedition New Earth, a documentary on space colonization, as a 2017 episode of Tomorrow's World. In August 2015, Hawking said that not all information is lost when something enters a black hole and there might be a possibility to retrieve information from a black hole according to his theory. In July 2017, Hawking was awarded an honorary doctorate from Imperial College London. Hawking's final paper, A Smooth Exit from Untitled Inflation, was published in the Journal of High Energy Physics on April 27, 2018. In 2006, Hawking posed an open question on the Internet. In a world that is in chaos politically, socially and environmentally, how can the human race sustain another 100 years? Later clarifying, I don't know the answer. That is why I asked the question, to get people to think about it, and to be aware of the dangers we now face. Hawking expressed concern that life on Earth is at risk from a certain nuclear war, a genetically engineered virus, global warming, or the dangers humans have not yet thought of. Hawking stated, I regard it as almost inevitable that either a nuclear confrontation or environmental catastrophe will cripple the Earth at some point in the next 1,000 years, and considered an asteroid collision to be the biggest threat to the planet. Such a planet-wide disaster need not result in human extinction if the human race were to be able to colonize additional planets before the disaster. Hawking viewed spaceflight and the colonization of space as necessary for the future of humanity. Hawking stated that, given the vastness of the universe, aliens likely exist, but that contact with them should be avoided. He warned that aliens might pillage Earth first. In 2010 he said, if aliens visit us, the outcome would be much as when Columbus landed in America, which didn't turn out well for the Native Americans. Hawking warned that super-intelligent artificial intelligence could be pivotal in steering humanity's fate, stating that the potential benefits are huge. Success in creating AI would be the biggest event in human history. It might also be the last, unless we learn how to avoid the risks. However, he argued that we should be more frightened of capitalism exacerbating economic inequality than robots. Hawking was concerned about the future emergence of a race of superhumans that would be able to design their own evolution and, as well, argued that computer viruses in today's world should be considered a new form of life, stating that maybe it says something about human nature, that the only form of life we have created so far is purely destructive. talk about creating life in our own image. Science versus philosophy. At Google's Zeitgeist conference in 2011, Hawking said that philosophy is dead. He believed that philosophers have not kept up with modern developments in science and that scientists have become the bearers of the torch of discovery in our quest for it. He said that philosophical problems can be answered by science, particularly new scientific theories which led us to a new and very different differential of the universe and our place in it. Religion and atheism. Hawking was an atheist and believed that the universe is governed by the laws of science. He stated, "There is a fundamental difference between religion, which is based on authority, and science, which is based on observation and reason. Science will win because it works." In an interview published in The Guardian, Hawking regarded the brain as a computer which will stop working when its components fail, and the concept of an afterlife as a fairy story for afraid of the dark. In 2011, narrating the first episode of the American television series Curiosity on the Discovery Channel, Hawking declared, "We are each free to believe what we want, and it is my view that the simplest explanation is there is no God. No one created the universe and no one directs our fate. This leads me to a profound realization. There is probably no heaven and no afterlife either. We have this one life to appreciate the grand design of the universe, and for that, I am extremely grateful." Hawking's association with atheism and free-thinking was in evidence from his university years onwards, when he had been a member of Oxford University's humanist group. He was later scheduled to appear as the keynote speaker at a 2017 Humanists UK conference. In an interview with El Mundo, he said, "Before we understand science, it is natural to believe that God created the universe. But now science offers a more convincing explanation. What I meant by we would know the mind of God is, we would know everything that God would know if there were God, which there isn't. I'm an atheist." In addition, Hawking stated, "If you like, you can call the laws of science God, but it wouldn't be a personal God that you would meet and put questions to." Politics. Hawking was a long-standing Labour Party supporter. He recorded a tribute for the 2000 Democratic presidential candidate Al Gore, called the 2003 invasion of Iraq a war crime, supported the academic boycott of Israel, campaigned for nuclear disarmament, and supported stem cell research, universal health care, and action to prevent climate change. In August 2014, Hawking was one of 200 public figures who were signatories to a letter to The Guardian expressing their doubt that Scotland would vote to remain part of the United Kingdom in September's referendum on that issue. Hawking believed a United Kingdom withdrawal from the European Union, Brexit, would damage the UK's contribution to science as modern research needs international collaboration, and that free movement of people in Europe encourages the spread of ideas. Hawking was disappointed by Brexit and warned against envy and isolationism. Hawking was greatly concerned over health care, and maintained that without the UK National Health Service, he could not have survived into his 70s. He stated, "I have received excellent medical attention in Britain, and I felt it was important to set the record straight. I believe in universal health care. And I am not afraid to say so." Hawking feared privatization. He stated, "The more profit is extracted from the system, the more private monopolies grow and the more expensive healthcare becomes. The NHS must be preserved from commercial interests and protected from those who want to privatize it." Hawking alleged ministers damaged the NHS. He blamed the Conservatives for cutting funding, weakening the NHS by privatization, lowering staff morale through holding payback and reducing social care. Hawking accused Jeremy Hunt of cherry-picking evidence which Hawking maintained debased science. Hawking also stated, "There is overwhelming evidence that NHS funding and the numbers of doctors and nurses are inadequate, and it is getting worse." In June 2017, Hawking endorsed the Labour Party in the 2017 UK general election, citing the Conservatives' proposed cuts to the NHS. But he was also critical of Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, expressing scepticism over whether the party could win a general election under him. Hawking feared Donald Trump's policies on global warming could endanger the planet and make global warming irreversible. He said, "Climate change is one of the great dangers we face, and it is one we can prevent if we act now." By denying the evidence for climate change and pulling out of the Paris Agreement, Donald Trump will cause avoidable environmental damage to our beautiful planet, endangering the natural world for us and our children. Hawking further stated that this could lead up to become like Venus, with a temperature of 250 degrees, and draining sulfuric acid. We hope you enjoyed the video and gained some new knowledge. Support the video by clicking the like button and support the channel by hitting the subscribe button. Thank you.